So today I'm going to demonstrate how to attach limbs with pins to the dragons. I think positioning is incredibly important when putting together a dragon from my Crafty Intentions pattern, and it can make or break the way that your dragon comes out. It'll either turn out really nice and natural looking, or it can sort of turn out looking like you tacked on the limbs as an afterthought. So I'm hoping that this video will really help show how to do it well. On here I have already pinned on all 4 limbs. This is what I do before I start sewing. I always pin on all 4 to make sure that the dragon will sit or stand firmly without wobbling and evenly, so that all 4 feet line up perfectly. This takes some trial and error. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take out the pins to show you how I do that. This is the standard front leg. I made 2 of them. You can use the front legs standing with either the sitting back feet or the standing back feet, which are going to be available in the next update of my pattern. When you make the front legs and you stuff them, I always put the glass gem in the bottom of the foot. It makes for a very firm, flat surface for the foot to stand on. And then I very firmly stuff the bottom of the foot and very lightly stuff the top. There's almost no stuffing at the very top here. I do that on both. And then I sort of sometimes sculpt that stuffing a little bit so that if this is the dragon's right foot, I sculpt the stuffing over a little bit so that this is a curved stuffed area, so that it fits against the curve of the dragon's body. Same for the back legs. I stuff them very firmly in the foot. I include the glass gem. These legs do not have wire in them, though you can use wire. It helps with stability and repositioning, but it is optional, 100% optional. So the first I'm going to show is how to attach, these are my pins, how to attach the front legs with the sitting rear legs, which are made in 2 pieces, the top piece and the foot piece. So for that, I bend the tail up so that he can have a sitting position. I take the front leg and attach that first. I try to make sure that the front foot is sort of at the same height as the back of the butt of the dragon. Move these pins over. I also try to make sure that this curve of the chest that seems very proud and handsome is stuck out beyond the front of the leg, because I want you to be able to see that when he's sitting. That seems about right. I could possibly put it a little higher or a little lower depending on what you want, but I think that's about right. Right in the middle of the chest, letting this stand out, and then you have to manhandle it into place. I start with a pin in the top corner. I push it through that top edge. I aim for where I want it to end up, and then I press it into the body like that. I'm holding this leg firmly in place with my thumb as I go. I'm going to do that to the top 2 corners, and then I will start working it to the rest. I want the foot to look like it's fully aligned with where the shoulder blade of the dragon will be. So I want the foot to actually be quite close to the body in line. So that means pulling that leg right up against the body of the dragon, making sure that it's very secure. Same goes for the back of the leg. I don't want this little elbow to stick out. I want it to be against the body of the dragon when I sew it on. So I'm gonna secure that in, stick this through, pin. And if that weren't enough, I would continue to use more pins. I think I might do one more. There you go. And that's one. I might go back and reposition that at some point if it doesn't seem like it's aligned quite the way I want. But first, I will pin on the other side to match. So I put it in the same place. You got to make sure that it is not too far forward. Right now that's too far forward. I'm going to smidge it back. That makes a big difference in how the dragon ends up looking at the very end. I want them to be the same height, so that makes a big difference. And then I also tend to look at the back and make sure that where I think the spine is, it's the same distance from side to side for those legs. I'm going to start to pin that on. And do not be afraid to stretch this piece. You want to stretch it and shape it to be exactly how you want it to look, so that when you go to sew it on, you don't have to pull at it while you're sewing. It's already pinned into place. That can make it a lot easier to do the tiny stitches that are not visible when you attach the limb. If you're having to wrestle with it to get it into position as you sew it, that can make the stitches look sloppier. One more here. And now he doesn't have any rear legs, but he can sit pretty well already. Now, it looks like there's a little bit of space under the butt of the dragon. He's a little bit elevated off the table, maybe a finger's width, but that's okay, we can work with that. When I attach the rear legs, I decide which side I want to show. Kind of like this side better. I align it. If this is where the tail starts, the back leg should start about here. So I put that there. This piece is very lightly stuffed. You can see it's very squishy. I press it up against, and I want it stretched out against the body of the dragon. That's 1, 2, 3. I do want it to maintain its round shape, so I'm not going to pull it to a point here, but I also want it stretched out, so it's important to position it and sculpt it as you go, exactly the way you want it to be when your dragon is finished. And then you take the foot of the dragon. The feet of the dragon, I recommend that you use at least 1 gem. I have found that I can fit 2 gems in, and then I don't use any stuffing at all. I like this. This is something that I've developed over time. I used to just use 1 or stuffing. The 2 gems in there provides significant stability once it's attached. And then I pin that in place. Even though I will take this off when I sew this on, I want to make sure that everything is perfectly aligned before I start permanently attaching anything. Now the foot is a little bit cockeyed. You can see that if this is straight, this is at an angle. So I'm going to pull that down with another pin just to make sure that it is completely secure and angled exactly the way I want when it's finished. That's one side. Now my dragon's a little cockeyed because it's missing a foot. So let's add that foot in. My second place it exactly where the other side was. This is maybe a little low. There we go. Grab those pins, and I really make it stick exactly in the shape that I want it to be. These are pearl-headed pins. You can get them at almost any craft supply store. They're mostly in the sewing section. I like that they're long. I like that I can see the pearl heads. But you can use any pins that you want to, but I strongly recommend you do use them. And then the back foot goes on. The back foot, again, should be underneath that leg piece. This whole section is as though the leg is folded up on itself. Once we sew it in, that's what it should look like. This should not be attached here. This should not be attached to the edge. This goes underneath the leg piece. This provides stability, and it looks like a folded in foot when the dragon is sitting. That looks pretty even. It's sitting nicely. The 4 feet are stable and even, and that is a sitting dragon. For the standing dragon and the standing rear legs, the front legs would need to be at a different angle to make the standing dragon. The rear leg would need to be like that, and the front leg would need to be rotated forward much more. And that's how you pin on the legs of the dragon. Let me know in feedback if you'd like a video for how to pin on the rear standing legs. I hope this helped.